Welcome to the first episode in a series of videos on an Inspector Calls. These videos are intended to help you revise for your English Lit exam or for a controlled test you might be required to do in class. This video will focus on the author of the play, J.B. Priestley, and a little of his background information, what Britain was like in the spring of 1912 when the play is set, the key events between the years 1912 and 1945, with 45 being the year Priestley wrote the play, what had happened in this period to make him write something so critical of those in power. Finally, we'll briefly think about the question, what is the play, which should help you to understand its themes and characters more easily. So who was J.B. Priestley? He was a playwright, a novelist and a broadcaster. He served in World War I and was wounded in 1916 by a mortar shell, so he had experience of bloody conflict. He wrote the play in Inspector Calls in 1945, in the last year of World War II, having experienced both world wars and some of the most disastrous world events in history. Politically, he was a socialist, which means he believed in a more equal economy so that a minority did not possess all the wealth. He was accused of having communist tendencies, which was not necessarily favourable in the years after World War II, as Western relations with the Soviet Union deteriorated into the Cold War. He later helped found the Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament, or CND, in 1958, which believes in the total ban of all countries from owning or proliferating nuclear weapons. Overall, he believed in peace and in the state helping the disadvantaged, poorer members of society to make life fairer and more equal for all. He blamed the ruling classes, those with power and money, during the period 1912 to 45 for the mistakes which led to two world wars in his lifetime. So what was Britain like in spring 1912, when the events in the Berlin household take place? Britain had been through an industrial revolution during the previous century, which saw a rapid expansion of big business, factories and heavy industry. The construction of the ship the Titanic was seen by many as the pinnacle of British achievement and enterprise. Growth of large companies and factories had made a minority of people who owned them rich, like the family pictured here. These people are known as capitalists, and in the play, like Mr. and Mrs. Burling, are typically concerned with themselves and their immediate family, wealth, profit, and their public image and reputation. There was a large working class who often worked in these companies and were generally paid poorly and badly treated by the ruling classes who employed them. Trade unions were weak, and so workers had few rights and poor systems to protect them from being sacked, like Eva Smith is from Burling & Co. Those with money and power, like Mr. Burling, saw no reason to change society when it was making them rich. The inspector represents Priestley's opinion that this had to change. By 1945 there was a huge wave of support for this social change, and this happened to some extent when the Labour Party, who was socialist, came to power that year. So what had happened to change people's minds? The key events 1912 to 1945. The unsinkable Titanic hits an iceberg on its maiden voyage to New York in April 1912. War breaks out in 1914, World War I, and lasts for over 4 years. The Russian October Revolution takes place in 1917, apparently bringing the people to power. This was a socialist revolution which removed Russia's dictatorial ruling class. In Britain, the general strike took place in May 1926, which saw 1.5 million people refuse to go to work. The strike lasted 9 days and was a protest against falling wages and poor conditions for coal miners in particular. The above 4 events are all referred to by Burling at the start of the play in some shape or form, and he dismisses them all as impossible, which makes him look a fool to the audience. World War II started in 1939 and lasts for nearly 6 years, with millions dead across the globe. During this war, 6 million Jews were murdered by the Nazis, an act of genocide known as the Holocaust. Atom bombs were dropped on Japan in August 1945 to knock them out of World War II and finally bring the war to an end. Events during this period clearly represent some of the darkest in human history. An Inspector Calls was first performed in the Soviet Union in 1945 and in Britain in 1946, just after the last of these events had taken place. So with all this in mind, what is the play? Well, it's several things, but it's up to you to decide how you want to interpret it. It is Priestley's protest against the ruling class in 1912 and in 1945. He blames the rich and the powerful for the course of recent history. It is his call for change in the way that society and politics function. The play promotes the idea of socialism, collective responsibility and compassion for other people. It paints the younger generation as a hope for a better future. Finally, the play is a warning to everyone of the mistakes of the past, and in this sense it still has an important relevance for us today. Thanks for watching this opening video in the Inspector Call series. Tune in to episode 2, which looks at the play's structure. Bye for now.